Brought to you by Capital One. Capital One wants to build a better bank, one that feels and acts nothing like a typical bank. It's why they're reimagining banking by offering accounts with no fees or minimums and one of the best savings rates in America. You can open a Capital One account from anywhere in 5 minutes. That's banking reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, and ESPN2, as we will be for the first 2 hours of the show each and every day. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic, Trey Wingo here. Junior is off doing social experiments. Wait, that sounds terrible. Junior is off doing social work. Wait, that sounds terrible.
Social media.
Junior's off doing social media.
That's what he's doing in Green. He's roaming around Green. So if you're in Green Bay and you get up and you see a
28-year-old?
20, he'll be 29 at the end of this month.
Holy smokes.
Good,
When's his birthday?
September 28th.
Okay.
At the end of this month, it'll be that. If you see a tattooed, bearded, balding dude
who looks 43,
throw him a cheese curd and a beer, he'll be good.
You'll be good. So he's roaming around there because we're going to Green Bay. We'll get up there tonight for our show tomorrow. We're looking very much forward to that at the Tundra Trio. We're going to have brats, beer, and cheese. And I couldn't be happier about it.
That's kind of life, isn't it?
That's the Tundra Trio. I'm believing that's what it is, right? Brats, beer, and cheese.
That's
what it's got to be.
I love it.
So we are good because football is here. By the way, Cliffy was asking me what's yesterday, our cookmaster extraordinaire, what do you like better, Christmas Eve or football Eve? Like yesterday was the eve of football.
Right.
Football Eve. Because Christmas Eve, you get 1 day of presents coming.
Yeah.
I got 22 weeks of presents coming.
I still like
out.
Christmas Eve better.
Get out of here.
No.
Leave.
I will not.
Leave now.
I will not.
We get 22 weeks starting tonight, so we are very, very excited about it.
Yep.
We'll talk a lot of football with our guests coming up in just about 30 minutes. We'll talk to Pat Shurmur, friend of the show, new head coach of the New York Football Giants, what to think about what they see in Saquon Barkley and what the plan is with Eli Manning going forward. Because remember, they passed on all those quarterbacks.
Yes, they did
in the draft.
They're invested in Eli at least the next couple of few years to see where this thing goes.
Absolutely. We'll get to all of that plus much more and some very interesting things that people need to understand on the Le'Veon Bell situation on what happens next, like what happens today, and what can and can't happen going forward. We'll get to all of that after we start with what's trending, and it's not trending the right way for our guy.
I want you to Shohei the way.
So Shohei Ohtani homered twice. Great. Huge night at the plate. 4 for 4 as the Angels beat the Rangers. But that is not the headline, Mike. The headline is it looks like he may be done until 2020.
Yeah, this was a tough one. Again, he had this MRI before the game, and it showed more damage. Remember, he pitched one time. He had been rehabbing his elbow, didn't get the Tommy John, rehabbed it, and they got to the point where they put him back on the mound. We were all kind of scratching our head a little bit of saying, okay, I guess it's part of the rehab process that he's ready to go there, but the thought was, why when you're out of the playoff hunt?
Correct.
He throws into the third inning. The velocity of his fastball, of which I think he ranked 6th in average velocity during the year, went down each inning. You knew something was wrong. It turns out there's more damage to the UCL, and now the recommendation is Tommy John surgery, which means he'll miss all of next year. So I'm still somewhat amazed they had him throw. He was hitting, ended up with 18 home runs, 4 for 4, a couple of home runs last night, but I still don't get it, and it's still looking for some explanation. And I think the only explanation you're really going to get is that's where he was in the rehab process, that he was back to the point where he was cleared to pitch. Obviously, they weren't going to put him on the mound if he wasn't, so this is where he was, and they wanted to see how he was doing. But there's following the medical road, and then there's, well, why should we do this? He's swinging the bat pretty well, doing well. Why put him back on the mound when there's no real need to when you're coming back from that?
Do we know it was because of the mound work, or can it be something with the hitting? I mean,
that I do not know.
That's
You're
the
right.
thing, because we played that sound from Mike Scioscia, the Angels manager, before the game, and he said, look, the short term is irrelevant. The long-term health of his pitching career is what matters. And if that's the case, all these home runs that he's hit this year shouldn't mean anything to you. If there's anything that he's doing, whether it's swinging a bat, because you know the vibrations that go through your hands and your elbows when you swing a bat and it makes contact, that can be just as disruptive if there's something in that UCL than there is anywhere else. So to me, the idea that they're doing any of this, if they really believe his long-term success is going to be as a pitcher, everything they've done doesn't seem to make any sense here because you're jeopardizing that future, and it looks like you won't see him again until 2020.
I agree. That was really kind of a confounding thing a bit there. Yeah, so, but he was, you know what? For the time we got to see him, you have to say he was as advertised, right?
Champagne supernova, baby.
He was as advertised. So hopefully this surgery, if he gets it, they're leaving it up to him and his team. And I don't mean the Angels team, his team around him, whether they do the surgery or not. And by the way, if you're going to do it, get it done.
I was about to say, go now. I mean, you've already lost 2020. So, 2019 rather. And Shohei Ohtani needing surgery is a second opinion. Well, second opinion brought to you by Cleveland Clinic. Visit clevelandclinic.org/mention it for answers to those 10 questions most men, quite frankly, are afraid to ask. And as we said, it all begins tonight. The NFL regular season is underway with the traditional Thursday night opener as the defending champion Eagles welcome in the Atlanta Falcons. Again, defending champs are 11-3 in these games, but really the home team has only lost twice because that one year where the Ravens were the defending champ and they gutted the entire team to pay Joe Flacco, that game had to be played in Denver, and Peyton Manning threw for 6 touchdown passes. They came from behind in the second half to win it, and it was a totally different dynamic. The only two teams to lose at home last year, believe it or not, when the Chiefs went into Foxborough and beat the Patriots, and after Super Bowl 46, when the Giants hosted the Cowboys, and the Cowboys went into the MetLife and beat them.
I think the home team wins tonight. I do think the Eagles win. I know Nick Foles didn't look great in the preseason. That O-line will be together again. It's one of the best O-lines in all of football. Multi-attack from the running back position. Foles has weapons to throw to. Not some that are injured. I understand that. But he doesn't have to carry the load all on his shoulders. He has a great supporting cast around him. And for Atlanta offensively, one thing that can't be as bad as last year. Last year, Matt Ryan was 1 for 18 when targeting Julio Jones in the end zone. And one of the incompletions was the 4th and 2 in the end zone in the playoff loss to the Eagles last year. So there's no way it can be that bad again. So let's see if that improves. The one thing I'm interested to see is it's supposed to be in the 80s and muggy tonight with possible rain.
Right.
Atlanta's defense is built off of speed. If it's muggy, you are going to see guys wear down a little bit, no doubt about it. And if it rains and it's a slick track, that hurts a fast team as well. And they love to live by speed on that Atlanta defense.
They do. So the best thing both offenses can do, whether it's the Eagles or the Falcons, run the damn football.
And Atlanta, run the ball.
Run the damn football. Second year, Steve Sarkisian is the offensive coordinator. They got away from that at times last year, and it really hurt them. So if Atlanta can commit to running the ball, I know Freeman's knee is a little bulky. Tevin Coleman is a very good back as well. That 1-2 punch would do them a lot of good in this game. By the way, Matt Ryan, who went to high school just outside Philadelphia, is just 1-4 in his career in road games at the Eagles, and that includes the playoff loss in the divisional round last year. Well, the shocking news over the weekend is what the Raiders did or didn't do, depending on how you looked at it, trading away Khalil Mack to the Bears for those 2 first-round picks. And so, a lot of us here, we have alerts on our phone.
Oh, yeah.
We follow Twitter, the ESPN app, whatever. You get your breaking news that way. Well, Bears quarterback Mitchell Trubisky.
What a great story.
Got his the old-fashioned way, Mike.
This is a great story. So his parents were in for the weekend and staying with him, and he was sleeping. He had a day off and wanted to sleep in. His mom came barging into the room and said that they just traded for Khalil Mack. And Mitch did not believe his mother. He said, "Get out of here."
Basically, he said this.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, he said, "I don't believe you." He said, I want to go back to sleep. I want to sleep in. Booted her out of the room and went back to sleep. And finally, he texted General Manager Ryan Pace to confirm if in fact that did happen, and found out it was true. But yes, mom barged in the room. His mom told him they traded for Khalil Mack. He didn't believe it. Kind of booted her. I'm sure didn't, but sure asked nicely for her to leave the room so he could get some more sleep. And then, got confirmed by Ryan Pace, the GM, that the trade did in fact happen.
So first he said he didn't believe her, and then by kicking her out of the room, he basically went Will Ferrell from Wedding Crashers.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
It's just, I want the meatloaf, I don't want the news.
You just want to push buttons, don't you?
I do. Wait, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. Golic and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. Nothing makes up for your football obsession like a surprise from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Okay, so we are fully immersed in the start of the NFL regular season tonight. As we said, it kicks off with the Eagles hosting the Falcons. But the biggest story might be what isn't happening in Pittsburgh, and that's Le'Veon Bell not there. And, Mike, the Steelers players, whether it was Marquise Pouncey, the center, Ramon Foster, the guard, or even to some extent Ben Roethlisberger, let everyone be known that we're not good with this, man. I mean, we feel like you didn't do us right, and it's very shocking to hear that kind of stuff play out. And that leads us to what will probably be a course correction today. Oh, boy,
it really will. First, going back to what went on, and I'm sure anybody following this story saw on Twitter or even heard on our shows. I'm sure other shows and other networks did the same. Our own Tedy Bruschi will be joining us a little later here in studio. He said it, and most other players say it. This is just something that's not done. You don't speak publicly about another man's money. So what does it say that they did? It says that, A, maybe he's not very well received in that locker room by some. B, there had been talk, and he said he was going to come in there, and he didn't, though I don't think that happened, because I think the way the players went off, if that in fact did happen, they would have said it. As much as they ripped him publicly, they would have said, hey, he said he was coming in, and he didn't, and none of them said that. So I don't think Le'Veon said, I'm coming in, and then didn't come in. They thought he was going to come in, because that's exactly what he did last year on the franchise tag, came in week 1 and played. But they spoke. You can be mad. I'm not. And people said, "Wouldn't you be mad?" Listen, I'd be upset. I'd be bummed that our best player, one of our best players, isn't there. But I wouldn't say a damn thing publicly about it, no matter how mad I was. And one of the reasons is today is Thursday.
Yep.
Today is the second prep day for your game. You have a game Sunday, and what's going to happen today when that room is opened up to the media? What questions are going to be going on there? Hey, did anybody talk to Le'Veon? Is Le'Veon mad at you guys? Have you heard from Le'Veon? Have you spoken to Le'Veon? What's going on with Le'Veon? And I'm going to tell you right now that what the answers are going to be. They're going to be, you know what? We're not talking about Le'Veon anymore. We got a game
Cincinnati.
to play. We're on to Cleveland.
Yeah.
We have our running back in Connor. He's going to be the guy. We're going to talk about the guys that are here. We got a game to play. That's what you're going to hear. But you brought that on yourself by bringing all this up publicly. To me, that should have been the comment yesterday is, hey, he's our teammate. When he gets in, he gets in. Right now, we deal with the players that are here. We got a game to play. That's what you're going to hear today, because they're all going to be asking all those same players, have you talked to Le'Veon? Has he talked to you? All that stuff is going to come out, and you're going to hear a little change, which you should.
Right.
Because they do have a game. They got a game Sunday. Le'Veon Bell is not going to be there, so they can't worry about him right now.
It feels like that they all thought, whether he told them, Le'Veon, or not, that he was going to be there, it feels like they all believed what played out last year
would happen again.
Was going to play out again
Right.
this year, and that, I think, threw them off. Again, Marquise Pouncey said as late as Tuesday, yeah, you can count on it.
Yeah.
He's going to be here, and he's not. And people may say to you, oh, what do you know about it? You haven't played in football in almost 25 years. Well, listen, people that have been playing in locker rooms much more recently than Golic are on the same side, include our own Ryan Clark, who spent time in Pittsburgh, saying you just don't go down this road.
The sense I'm getting from the locker room and talking to people is that there was just no communication. You heard Ramon Foster say, at least let us know. And I think that's a huge part of it. The friendship, the camaraderie that comes along with being teammates and not knowing where your running back stands, I believe it's really difficult for these guys to handle. And I think we saw some of that frustration kind of outweigh the written rules of locker room and teammates where you don't really count another man's money.
1,000% agree. Yep. And Amy tweets me a very basic question, and it's a great question. Do you think what Bell is doing to his teammates is wrong? It's a very good question, Amy. Then that's the question. Here's what I will say. I am not going to say someone is wrong when they're trying to get their money.
Correct.
But just what Ryan said, and I'm not saying to everybody on that team, there's 53 players. There are cliques in teams. I mean, there just are more friends. There are guys that I played with that would never want to hang out with me, and I probably wouldn't hang out with them, but you play well together on the field. But I had a lot of friends on the team. But Le'Veon Bell's closest friends, that's where the issue probably comes in, and I would agree. If you're actually not going to show up for games, that maybe there would be that communication.
Right.
Hey, man, I'm sorry. I got to do this right now for what I'm doing. I'm not going to be there for the start of the season. And whatever discussion goes on then between those guys on the phone or however, or face-to-face on the phone, whatever it is, happens. But at least it's between them then. And then Le'Veon gets the guys he talks to, his friends on the team, kind of caught up on where he is. Does he owe them that? No one's going to say he owes them that. To me, would that have been a good thing to have? In most things in life that we talk about on this show that turn bad, communication could help a lot.
Absolutely.
So if there was a little bit of communication, and I think Pouncey and him are pretty good buds, if it was with him or one of the other O-linemen or whoever else was a friend on his team that said, probably not going to be there early on, and you know, this is what I'm trying to do here, maybe that would have smoothed a little bit of this venom that's going on out right now. But as far as is he wrong, I'm not going to say, Amy, somebody is wrong for trying to work the business side of the NFL, because NFL and their teams work the business side of players, and players get very few chances to work the business side for them. So I'm not going to sit there and say he is wrong for working his business side. Communication amongst he and maybe his better teammates he's friends with, that probably could have been better and helped this situation.
And let's be clear about what you just said, the business side of this, because you hear all the time, honor the contract, honor the contract.
Come on.
Well, then find me a time when the NFL and the owners and the team honor the contract. How many times have you heard, yeah, we're cutting you because we don't want to pay him? Look what happened to Dan Bailey, the kicker. Second most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys. Was set to make $3.4 million this year, and the Cowboys were like, yeah, we're good. And they cut him and have a rookie kicker now who's never made a kick in the NFL, and just on a money deal, they decided they didn't want to invest that kind of $3.4 million. So I don't want anybody here. He should honor the contract, because when it happens on the other side, the team never honors the contract.
By the way, he has no contract.
Yeah.
Let's say technically he doesn't have a contract.
Yeah.
He has an offer out. He has a tender out there for $14.5, which he didn't sign. So technically he has no contract.
Right.
There is no contract there to honor. People are mad, and his teammates are mad because it's $14.5 million that he is choosing to turn down that complete amount and not being there right now, as his teammates say, for them. And there are other people questioning, well, why don't you just trade him? That's not going to happen.
Well, this is interesting, though. It could happen, Mike.
It could happen, but it's not going to happen.
Let's explain this. A franchise tag player can be traded, and teams can work out any compensation they like. They can deviate from the 2 first-round picks that a franchise tag player's new team must give to his previous team if the player is signed to an offer sheet not matched by his previous team. So it's possible, actually. And that raises a whole different spectrum here. Because, again, Adis Bakare, his agent, was on NFL Live and basically threw down the gauntlet that said, it's going to be a while. So if you're the Steelers and you now believe that it's going to be a significant part of this season, and you think that you're not sure what his interest level is, and maybe of giving maximum effort in a year that he wants to protect his body for free agency, maybe this is a very interesting solution to this situation, because it's very rare. It doesn't happen, but it's possible. And we certainly saw the same situation play out on a different level with Khalil Mack, who was in the last year of his contract.
He actually had a contract.
He had a contract that was signed, but it is possible for a player on a franchise tag to be traded, and they can work something out that may not be those 2 number 1 picks. And that opens up a whole different avenue in this discussion, because at this point, what is best for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is it better for the Steelers to say, we'll take your 8 games or whatever they are at $7.4 million? Or is it better, look, if he's gone, maybe we try and get something back for Le'Veon Bell, work out a trade, and then we get something instead of seeing him skate in free agency. Yeah,
because, again, from Le'Veon's side, that's what he's worried about, is the use of 406 touches last year of all the touches. And Pittsburgh pretty much knows that he's not going to be there next year. They both know that. And I think we all understand that. So he knows that they're going to use him. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'd use him, too, because he's a fantastic back. Crypto tweets in, I think it starts, and I wonder if it's going to start to turn this way at all. I think it starts with management for not being willing to work out a deal with him, make a deal, and he's there. then why go out your career and put your career at risk with no certainty of the future for your contracts? As I'll say again, when he got that offer of $30 million guaranteed and $70 million, I think, overall, and he turned it down, everybody lost their mind. And then Todd Gurley got 15 more million. Yeah. $45 million guaranteed. And basically Gurley, Le'Veon was like, see? Yeah. Because if you sit there and say who should be higher paid, they both should be high paid. Right. But Le'Veon should be right, at least with him, if not more.
I agree. And just forget the top end dollar of the contract, because that means nothing.
It doesn't.
You said,
we're talking
$70 million, which wasn't going to be $70 million, and it's $60 million for Gurley, but it's never going to be $60 million. But of that $60 million, $45 million is guaranteed. 2/3 of that contract is basically guaranteed, over 2/3, whereas in a situation with Le'Veon Bell, less than half of that $70 million contract was guaranteed. That's the significant difference. I'm really curious now to see if the Steelers are entertaining trading Le'Veon Bell because of the possibility of this. It's very rare.
Very rare.
Very rare. It doesn't happen. But the fact that it can, boy, makes it muy caliente, very spicy what's going on with the Steelers and Le'Veon Bell.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr.
Man, do coaches hate to hear that.
Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What? You
Sorry
mean Victor
about
Cruz saying he's going to win 10
games?
I
hate to hear that. Yeah. Oh, they're going to win 10 games. They're going to be in the playoffs.
I think the Giants are going undefeated. I think the Giants are going to go 16-0 and win every game by 35 points.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, we're delighted to be joined by Giants head coach Pat Shurmur on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. So, Coach, congratulations on an undefeated season.
Yeah, thanks for piling on. This is great.
Right now, he's thinking, how quickly can I hang up?
Oh, geez.
No,
good morning, guys.
Good morning, Pat. We're just kidding. But listen, we're a little giddy today because the season starts tonight. For a coach and the team that's been through literally the hard knocks of training camp and all the things you do to prepare this team, how excited are you as a head coach to finally start delving into what really matters?
Yeah, you know what? We're all excited here. I think, I really like our group of guys, our coaches, our players, the way things have been supported, from the front office on down. So I'm just looking forward to going out and putting the ball down and getting this thing started. I think we've got a long way to go. And there's so many things that we need to do as a team to become the really good team that we want to be. But, we all start somewhere. And unfortunately for us, we're going to start against a team that was one game away from winning this, going to the Super Bowl. So we're looking forward to it. We're getting our guys trained up. I told the media yesterday we're working on Wednesday things. Today we're working on Thursday things and trying to stay in the moment and get ready for Sunday.
And college season just started last week, and we talk about those first games when they're against difficult opponents that they have no preseason. The NFL, you do have preseason. So right. Do you feel you get to know what your team is a little quicker in the regular season than in the college game just because of the preseason games?
I don't know. You remember as a player, you don't really. Every player in the NFL only plays partial, games in the preseason. So, I think we all learn a lot about our teams, regardless of what team you're coaching. For me, it's probably a lot more because it's new. But I think the first month of the season, you really learn a lot about your team, and you can make significant improvements as you carry yourself through.
Well, again, as you said, as Giants head coach Pat Shurmur is with us, you start with a very tough test, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, of course, they have one of the great players, one of the great young players in the league in Jalen Ramsey. And you have one of the great young players in the league in Odell Beckham Jr. They worked out together in the offseason, and it was all jovial. But it's not going to be so jovial when they meet on the field. And we all go back to 2015 when we saw Odell going up against Josh Norman and what happened in that contest where they both sort of lost their heads. And Odell came out and said it, Pat. Listen, I'm going to be better about this now.
Yeah, but you took the cheese, so I can't be mad at anything that happened. I bid on it, so it's all good.
So he's basically saying, look, I made the mistake in that game. I'm not going to go down that road again with Jalen. As a coach, you got to love hearing that from Odell.
Well, it's good to hear from any player. We talk about all the time about our players, keeping their composure, the competitive spirit. What makes our players great all players, is they know how to compete and they like the physical nature of our game. But it's equally important to keep your composure. And I think, if he's talking about those things, then it's important to him. And certainly, we as a coaching staff have talked to all our players about that stuff.
Talking to Pat Shurmur, New York Giants head coach, was a Vikings offensive coordinator last year. He'd been around this league for a while. So you have a rookie in Saquon Barkley, which, listen, just by nature of where he was picked, a lot's expected of him. Have you been in the process of talking to these rookies before the start of the regular season, or do you just kind of let them be and let the veterans of the team kind of manage them at the beginning?
No, I think we try to bring them along. Bringing a rookie along kind of runs parallel with, who they have to be as a player. The one thing about Saquon that he's been terrific about is, even though he was picked so high and the expectations are high, we told him when he got here, listen, here's your helmet, here's your locker, here's the meeting room, here's the field, now let's get going. And he's been good about it. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do on Sunday. You've heard me say it before, and I really do believe in it. When it comes to running backs, it takes a village. And, I think it's very, very important that we use all the guys that are active and, just keep getting him what he needs and then hopefully give him more and more here as we go.
Pat Shurmur, the Giants head coach, with us. There's a lot of expectations on this guy. I mean, he's already got a bunch of nicknames, Saquad, all this kind of stuff. From your perspective, what is a realistic expectation of production level from Saquon in his rookie year?
Well, we'll see. I mean, he's going to get his opportunities, and we'll see what he can do with them. My sense is we're going to see all the things we saw, when he was in college, because we've seen him get himself ready to play behind the scenes, and we feel like he's ready to go.
Yeah, how about the other side of the ball, defense? A couple of years ago, this Giants defense they put a lot of new pieces together, and they all seemed to fit pretty well. A little bit of taking a step back last year. So much talk of obviously Eli and Odell and Saquon, but we know there's three parts to a football team, and one of them's defense. How has the defense come along?
I like the way it's coming along. I think we got a tough, gritty group of guys. I think when you watch our team, we're gonna have to use the whole roster there. We all know it's important to, you're not going to stop the run completely, but you got to try to control the run. And then when the team passes, we got to get pressure and cover. And so, we have all those elements on our defense. They're just going to have to go out and play hard, which I know they will, and see what happens.
Pat Shurmur, head coach of the Giants, is with us. We just talked about the defense. The offense is going to be interesting as well because basically, look, the line was a real problem, Pat, for the Giants last year, as you well know. You bring in Nate Solder, and then you draft Will Hernandez. How important are those two players to making sure you get the most out of Eli Manning? Because, again, you guys passed on a quarterback in a quarterback-rich draft. You get rid of Davis Webb. So, basically, you're in there with Eli for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
well, to your point, we made significant change to the O-line. Also added Pat Omame, played in Jacksonville. So you've got three new faces there, and then two guys that were here a year ago that we're really enjoying working with. So we're going to go as far as that line will block for us, and I really like the way they're working together. And, this can be a great test on Sunday. This is a very, very talented defense. They're very active. They're very disruptive. They run to the ball. So, it's going to be a good test right out of the box. But we like what they've done to this point, and we all know when it comes to offensive lines, if we're fortunate enough to stay healthy, they can get better and better as the year goes on. And so, we're on this little journey right now, and I'm anticipating, although we've done some good stuff so far, that they're going to continue to get better each week.
Pat Shurmur with us, the Giants head coach. One last thing on the quarterback situation. Davis Webb, I believe, was a third-round pick. You let him go. How much of that was about what Davis wasn't or what Kyle Laletta might be? Because we had Bill Polian on at the Combine, Pat, and I asked him this question. I said, give me the player that nobody's talking about that they should be talking about. And instantaneously he said Kyle Laletta, the quarterback out of Richmond.
Well, I think everything is combined, when you're talking about who you're going to keep on your roster. And, I think to your point about the third-round pick, at some point, it really doesn't matter where we're picked. We're all out there playing. And I think that's the way I look at it. And, unfortunately, I wasn't here a year ago when this all happened, but just out there watching him play, there were many, many things that we really liked about Davis Webb, and we're real super happy about the fact that he's getting an opportunity at the Jets. So that being said, we like what we see in Kyle. We like what we see in Alex Tanney, and with regard to Kyle, he's got really good instincts. He's pretty decisive about what he does. So, he learns what he's looking at, and if he sees it, he'll pull the trigger. And, I sort of like that in a quarterback that's, willing to make a decision and pull the trigger. And, he has that. Now, there's a whole lot for him to learn. We all know there's a big jump coming from college to the pro game, but he's on that right path.
Pat, how about for you? You got into this back in 1988 as a grad assistant with Michigan State, so you've been doing this for a while. How do you get on opening weekend? How nervous do you get for this?
Well, I'm a career coach, so I've gotten to the point in my career where you just try to make the players and the coaches help them be as good as they can be. And, I have to tell you, I'm not so sure I get nervous or anxious. I've got a lot of concerns today, and it's Thursday. And so we just try to get as good as we can be and go out there and play. I love the competitive nature of this. And, I'd rather compete and see what happens than do something else. And I'm just looking forward to it. I really believe in what we're doing around here. We got a long way to go, but I'm really just looking forward to it. I was telling the guys yesterday, there's really nothing about a game weekend that ever gets old. The whole process from when you're having the final practices to the final meetings to the final meals to waking up on the morning on game day to the hour and a half that leads up to it. None of that gets old for me, and I'm certain that's probably what players miss when they can no longer do it.
Oh, no
you would
question.
Be correct.
Yeah.
You would be correct.
We had Eric Mangini on, former head coach in a couple places in the NFL with us, and he told me once he went back to just look at some film, and he put the telestrator clicker in his hand. He's like, it was like the finger that had been missing from my hand. You're either in or you're not when it comes to coaching in football. By the way, Jags at Giants this Sunday can be heard right here on most ESPN radio stations. Pre-game coverage starts at noon. Pat, congratulations. All the success in the world. Really, we look forward to that undefeated season for you guys this year. Really do.
Thanks, Coach. No pressure.
No pressure. All right.
Thanks, Pat. Be good. We'll talk to you down the road.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day. What a show. What a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
This is an interesting phenomenon I stumbled upon, that if you just add book it to the end of any phrase, the shorter the better, it makes it immediately a hot take.
Owen says, Jaguars win the Super Bowl, book it.
I like Tim's poutine.
Book it. Man, that's a strong point from Tim.
That is. LeBron is Toronto's kryptonite.
No.
Book it.
I like Steve's better. Josh Allen will break a table before the season starts. # Bills Mafia. Book it.
Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today.
All right. It is time for Hot Take Central, otherwise known as Book It. Debbie, Bubble Boy, you ready?
I'm ready, always.
Do it.
Hold on, sorry, I got to do the sponsorship.
Yeah, let's do that.
Brought to you by Discover Card. Discover thinks annual fees are ridiculous. If you do, too, find out more at discovercard.com. Speaking of ridiculous, here's Bubble Boy.
Le'Veon Bell will be back by week 4. Book it.
By week 4. So they're at Cleveland, home to Kansas City, at Tampa Bay, and then so by week 4, which would mean by being home to Baltimore. By week 4. Man. Again, they can't pay him anymore. He is completely sitting out to save his body from all the hits he's going to take. So he can stay till week 10. And we're talking week 4. I don't think I'm going to book it. I think he's going to sit.
I'm not going to book it either because I think the trade thing now becomes a reality. I think that now that they realize he's going to, if they think he's going to be gone for a long term and he doesn't want to do the things he's done for them without getting the money, they have to think about trading.
Try and get something for him. If you can work that out.
You have to try and get something for him because he's going to walk in free agency no matter what.
Right.
You know that at this point.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows that he's not going to be on Pittsburgh after this year.
Yeah.
So he's trying to curtail the amount of hits, and maybe Pittsburgh should look into what we can do possibly with a trade.
Yep.
The Philadelphia Eagles will repeat as the NFC East champs. Book it.
You can book it.
You can book it.
Again, the last NFC East team to repeat were the Eagles in 03 and 04, and I think they will do it again. I understand the Giants have Odell back. Eli's a quarterback. They got a possibly great rookie running back in Saquon. Dallas, we'll see. I mean, there's some injury situations they're working on there. Don't sleep on Washington.
See, that's the thing.
Don't sleep on Washington.
I think Washington is going to be a lot better than.
But overall, I think Philadelphia still has the best pieces. You're going to get Carson Wentz back at some point, so I'm booking it.
Put it in the books.
I'm not booking it.
Wow.
For one thing, if I had, sorry, Cliff hates me now. If I had a card, I would play it. I'm playing my history card. Hasn't happened in a long time. As you said, they'll get Carson Wentz back at some point.
Right.
If I had a clear line of demarcation for that, I might book it. This division is going to be difficult. It's one thing to be the hunted as opposed to the hunter. Every game is a Super Bowl when you play against those guys. I think I have to not book that one.
We'll be quicker, Debbie. Go ahead.
We'll see an ejection due to the new helmet rule in week 1. Book it.
I'm not going to book that. We saw one in week 1 of the preseason, I know, but I don't think we're going to see that here. I think A, players are learning, and B, I think referees aren't going to be tossing as many flags.
Totally with you. Can't book that one because of what you just said.
Tony Finau will be named as the 4th captain's pick for the U.S. Ryder Cup team on Monday. Book it.
Book it!
You can book it.
We are all in. We are all in on Tony Finau. Our guy, Mr. Dislocated Ankle after an ace, still shoots a 68, finishes in the top 10 at the Masters. You can book it that the birdie machine is going to be the final captain's pick for the Ryder Cup team.
It's the most important question of the day. Trey Ringo will perform his first career.
Ringo?
Trey
Stay
Ringo.
Wingo.
Yeah, Ringo.
You stay Ringo.
He will perform his first career keg stand tomorrow in Green Bay. Book it.
Wow. No shot he will.
0.
There's no shot.
0.
Yeah, that he'll keg stand.
Now, are you going to keg stand?
If there's a keg tap, maybe I will.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Listen, if a guy's going to lather himself up in oil and put a bow in his butt and stand in a garbage bag, I think doing a keg stand isn't the worst thing in the world.
That's exactly right.
There you go.
Quench
in
my
fact,
thirst.
I think if on the rules of ridiculous things, what follows next would be a keg stand in Green Bay. Are the Steelers shopping Le'Veon Bell? We'll ask DJ Schefter Chef. Stay Wingo.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
We have got a lot to get into, and let's do it now as we are delighted to be joined by our NFL insider, author, and host of the Adam Schefter podcast, Adam Schefter, giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We'll get into what my summer reading was and your summer writing was in just a little bit. But Adam,
did you read it?
I did.
Wow, okay, great.
Very good.
He's a reader. He is a book reader, without question.
Mike last read a book, never.
My wife will read this book, and then she will explain it to me.
That's okay. You get the audiobook there, too.
Cool.
So we'll get into that in a minute. But this Le'Veon Bell situation has become muy caliente.
Well, let me say this to you. When you get teammates talking about another man's financial situation, that is very rare.
Stunning.
And that speaks, I think, to a larger issue, right? I mean, I've covered the league now 28 years.
Yeah.
There have been only a handful of times where you get other teammates talking about another teammate's financial status. Now, look, again, I think that speaks to bigger issues than Le'Veon Bell.
Without question.
Not being there, whatever those are. Whether the team has issues with him, he has issues with the team, whatever it may be. That is so rare when you hear that type of conversation.
Well, and some people were tweeting, and well, maybe this is a sign of the times of social media. But listen, we just went through Khalil Mack, Odell Beckham, Aaron Donald, and you didn't hear any teammates, in an interview or on Twitter.
You don't do that.
Blasting. You don't
do that. And here's the thing. You could say, if these offensive linemen said, look, we don't need him to win, or James Conner's great, or we're going to go into Cleveland on Sunday without Le'Veon Bell and win the game. I got no problems with any of that.
Right.
But when you start talking about that's not right.
Listen, not right. The last time we could remember doing it was Strahan and Tiki Barber in 2002 when Tiki made some comments about Strahan's deal, and that relationship was never the same. Those two did not get along in any way, shape, or form. So we have that when people openly talking about, hey, I make 1/7 of what he's making and I do the work for him, basic blocking. That's unheard of. So, Adam, now it becomes a question. Is it becoming an untenable situation for Le'Veon Bell to return to Pittsburgh?
Look, I think we all agree it's going to be his last year in Pittsburgh, period. So now, Trey, we saw each other in the halls of ESPN, and you said to me, could they trade him? And I'm not saying no. I just don't think it's possible to do it.
Take us through how it would work.
Here's the premise of this. A franchise tag player can be traded, and teams can work out any compensation they like. They can deviate from the two first-round draft picks that a franchise player's tag's new team must give him to his previous team if the player is signed to an offer sheet not matched by its previous team.
Okay.
So it's possible.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Let's come up with a running back needy team right now that's probably out of conference, I would think. Although, give me a team that you think would make sense as a landing spot. But how about this? The San Francisco 49ers.
I was about to say the 49ers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just use them as a hypothetical, pure hypothetical. 49ers want to trade for Le'Veon Bell, which would make a lot of sense. It'd be a great thing. First of all, he'd have to sign his franchise tender to be traded. He cannot be traded unless he signed the franchise tender. And if you're the 49ers right now, basically, you'd have the cash and the cap space to do something, but he can't sign a long-term deal this year. So now you're trading for a guy who will be a free agent after this year, who already has been franchise tagged twice, who you basically, by and large, don't have the ability to keep short of using a third straight prohibitive franchise tag on him, which would be 144% of his salary from this year.
Right, they wouldn't do that. It would be like the Kawhi Leonard situation, right? Where Kawhi said he wants to be with the Lakers, Toronto trades for him, and then prays that they can sign him at the end of the year. That's what the 49ers would be doing, correct?
Okay, so that would be the situation. So Pittsburgh would have to be willing to move on from a guy where Ben Roethlisberger's in the latter part of his career, where they're poised to contend, even win a Super Bowl. And you'd have to see that James Conner can do it. So what would the compensation be in a case like that? I'm guessing for Le'Veon Bell in this case, it would be, off the top of my head, a 2. A 2. Is it worth it to Pittsburgh to trade Le'Veon Bell for a 2? To be clear of that?
Well, they're not getting it. If they walk away in free agency, they're getting a compensatory pick.
Correct. There'd probably be a 3 that they get back. It'd be a 3 in 2020.
So you're saying take the chance, hang on to him, even if it's for the last 6 games of the season?
He's got more value to Pittsburgh than any pick you're going to get back in return.
I think I would agree with you. Given what you said that price tag would probably be, I think I would agree with you on that. And for the fact that if it were the 49ers, they would still have a shot at him at the end of the season anyway. And wouldn't give up anything.
So yes, Trey, a trade could happen, but it is very difficult to make it happen.
Yes. Well,
that's all.
Well, listen, difficult might be the word to describe this entire situation with the way this has gone down. Perhaps here's the most important question for fantasy owners. like myself. When do you think Le'Veon Bell is going to show up?
Well, I don't believe he'll wait long.
Yeah.
How about that, Trey? I don't believe it's going to be one of these 8, 9, 10-game holdouts where he comes in October, November so that the contract doesn't toll and that he clinches the fact that he can become a free agent after this year. Keep in mind that the Steelers, once he does report, can put him on a 2-week commissioner exempt list.
Sure, right.
In which case they don't have to pay him at that point in time. So if he reported today, which he's not going to do, then he might not play until week 3. But I think you'll see him at some point in the first month of the season, Trey. I don't think it's going to be an extended, prolonged hold. That would be my guess, my reading to the situation. You're trying to interpret all the signs and signals and smoke screens. But I'll also say this. You wonder if the comments and conversation yesterday changed the equation to where he says, you know what? I'm not going until later. I mean, I'm just saying like that. And now even when he does come back, it's
how invested is he?
This is what I wonder, too.
Well, I always thought, and from a fantasy standpoint, Trey, no disrespect to the squad that you drafted in our 16-team War Room.
He was sitting there at 12. I had to take him.
I know.
I had to take him.
I was never taking Le'Veon Bell this year, not because I don't believe he's not one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the league, but because his goal is to get to March into free agency this year. And if he bangs that knee or bangs that shoulder in November, whereas many players would play through that, is he playing through that when he's got free agency around the corner? I don't know.
I guess that's why I wonder if he's not showing up for week 1, why would he show up by week 4? Because all this is about now, it's not about money. As we all know, he can't make any more money or any less money. Well, the less is $855 a week, $855,000 he misses. So his whole thing now is protecting the touches.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he's doing it now.
Protecting the touches and securing the bag.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
He's going to secure the bag.
I wonder why he would come back in a month then. Well, I mean, and unless it's out of just wanting to be there for his team, which just basically all ripped him publicly. Now, I really wonder, as a former player now, what's going to happen behind the scenes. Are those guys going to talk? Is there the better friends on the team for him? Are they going to call and they're going to talk to one another and try and hash things out that way? I don't know if that gets him in any earlier, but that's what it's all about now, right? His comfort level of missing time with the Pittsburgh Steelers and his teammates as opposed to the lack of touches.
Well, it's for every game he misses, it's $852,000+ out the window. He's basically saying goodbye to.
Right.
$852 per week, plus, again, the idea that the Steelers could basically deactivate him or put him on that list for 2 weeks for another $1.7+ million. So you're saying goodbye to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars here. Now, saying that, you look at what Todd Gurley just did, sign a 4-year, $60 million extension, $45 million guaranteed. If Le'Veon Bell bids goodbye to $4, $5, $6, $7 million this year, what does it matter when you're going to go sign a $70 million contract?
Well, that's the point I was going to make. That's sort of the way Khalil Mack thought about this entire season. He was willing to sacrifice, we believe, $13.8 to get what he got.
And by the way, Odell Beckham Jr.,
yeah,
if he hadn't signed that contract, I don't know that he would have been there for the opener.
Right,
I don't know that he would have been willing to step on the field. Do you think it was coincidental? I know it was very easy to say, well, yeah, he's coming off the injury last year, so we're not playing him in the preseason. But my belief and sense would be that that was as contract-driven as anything else. And if the contract hadn't been worked out, I don't know that we would have seen Odell Beckham Jr. in week 1.
Okay, so we have the one holdout that is still going on. That's Le'Veon Bell. We have another one, Mike.
Another one, not even a holdout. He showed up. Earl Thomas. So how long do we think he's there? Pete Carroll says he's a Seahawk, but the Cowboys offered a 2 for him. They turned it down. Where do we think that's headed?
Look, here's the deal. Within the last week, Dallas increased its offer to a second-round draft pick. So clearly the Cowboys want him, and they need him. They need him. And he's from Texas. And we all know how much Earl Thomas would like to go play there.
Campaign for it as a Seahawk.
Seattle, which is a team I think is going to be better than people realize this year, because people have kind of written them off because so many players, veteran players, love. They're in a transformational period here where they're jettisoning some older, more expensive talent for younger players and picks. So to me, moving on from Earl Thomas, as great a player as he is, a future Hall of Famer, would be logical for this team at this point in time. But the Seahawks have been adamant that they're not just going to give him away. And if we think about last year, the Seahawks traded a 2nd and 3rd round pick for left tackle Dwayne Brown, a 2 and a 3. Is Earl Thomas as good or as valuable as Dwayne Brown?
Yeah.
So that's where the Seahawks are not budging on the
they're
second.
not going to get a 1. We're not talking about it up
Right,
until
but
1. You're talking about a 2 and other picks.
Well, maybe Josine Anderson said yesterday that they want a 1. I don't know.
I'd be stunned.
Well, but maybe
that.
Dallas goes, okay, it's a 2 and a 5 or a 2 and a 4.
Right.
Or we give you a 2 and then you give us your 6 and we'll give you our 4. I'm making this up.
Right.
There are so many
number thing works out.
permutations.
This is radio. That's what we do. We make it up.
So okay, there are so many
road.
permutations. But here's the bottom line. I think eventually we're going to get to the point. I think Seattle is going to be open and willing to move on from Earl Thomas in season. Now, the other part to this is that Seattle plays on Sunday when it opens its season at Denver.
Yeah.
Week 2 at Chicago. Week 3, the Seahawks home opener, Dallas Cowboys. So wouldn't it make sense on the Monday of Week 4
just go back on the team plan?
Exactly, Earl. You go back with the Cowboys like Dwayne Brown last year. The Texans played in Seattle.
Absolutely.
And then he got traded out. He could have just stayed.
Yeah.
So that would make a lot of sense to me. And again, we could get this deal done now. Look, the Seahawks said no to the 2. So we're willing to barter these picks, right?
Absolutely
so it's a 2
right.
and that extra compensation, Mike.
Look, we can figure everything out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Clear.
It's radio.
Money.
That's what we do.
In
Not
this
our money or
studio,
picks.
we can figure the whole thing out. Adam Schefter is with us, NFL insider, the host of the Adam Schefter podcast. And you wrote a book this summer called The Man I Never Bet, which is a fascinating story about a man named Joe Mayo. Now, for those that don't know, please explain the significance of Joe Mayo in your life.
Joe Mayo was my wife's late husband, and he lost his life on 9/11. And we did a feature on ESPN on the 15th anniversary of 9/11, which was the opening day of the 2016 season. And we did it after my wife had said to me, it would be nice to acknowledge Joe and talk about him, which surprised me because she's so intensely private about everything. But when she said that, I've always had this great fascination and respect for Joe. And so to me, it was my pleasure. And the great producer here, Greg Jules, signed off on doing that. And we put it out. And that piece generated more reaction than anything I've ever done in 28 years. And it's not even close.
Yeah.
And so there were people who thought, not me, people who thought, well, we should take that 6-minute piece and turn it into a 200-page book, much more personal, much more detailed than we did. And the book was released Tuesday. And you read it, Trey, so you tell me.
It was, it was phenomenal. It was great. I knew the subject matter going in. I saw the piece that you guys did on Countdown. Greg Jules, one of the best we have here. But as you said, the book is much more personal.
That's how tough did that have to be?
Yeah. I mean, how cathartic was this for you? Or how interesting was it
for you?
Well,
I thought about it, actually. I don't know, and maybe it has. We could have ESPN stats and research check. Has anybody ever written a book about their spouse's first partner?
I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure it's likely, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I certainly can't. Yeah, start listing them off.
It's a unique premise.
Yeah.
And it was a difficult thing to do. But again, that's our life. And from that day, there are thousands of these stories. Thousands. There are people who have stories that they'll never get past, that are in their soul for the rest of their lives, that have impacted them and changed them. And again, it's no different from my parents who lost their best friend, and friends I grew up with who lost their dad, and fraternity brothers of mine who lost their life. And my wife happened to lose her husband that day. And so this was a chance to basically honor his memory and to pay tribute to my wife for the strength and toughness that she showed once she lost him, and to give our son something to read about his father when he gets older. Would love if he had read it, but he's a freshman in college. Trey, he's busy.
He's doing some other things.
But he will have a chance one day to know the man that he didn't get to know better through this book. And I've said this to a couple of other people, but I gave this book to some people this summer to read. And there's a woman who works in a shop near my house who makes my smoothie every morning. And I gave her the book, and she said, I read the book, and I could not believe how glowingly you spoke of Joe. And so I said, he can't be that good. He can't be that charismatic. He can't be that respected and that successful and that handsome. So I went onto his memorial page, and I read the comments that were written about him. And actually, you undersold him in the book, according to all the people who wrote on his page. And that, honestly, was the number one aim of this book, was to honor his memory and show people the kind of guy that he was. He was 32. He was enormously successful. He had just moved to Long Island. They had just moved into a house. They had been married for 3 years. They had a 15-month-old son. And who could imagine having everything in the world at the age of 32 and then having your life snuffed out just like that? It's hard to comprehend.
Yeah. How tough was this for your wife? I mean,
you know what, Mike? In all honesty, this was not any tougher for my wife than the life that she's led. The hard part was that she had to go back and relive the darkest days of our life. But one of our producers here, Dominique Collins, when she did the story that ran on TV, interviewed my wife for 3-4 hours. We had the transcripts from that day. So I didn't have to make my wife sit down and go through it again.
Right.
She had gone through it. And
right.
So this was more along the lines of remembering the man that Joe was and talking about the lives that went on and the lives that were interrupted and the Mayo family, which has demonstrated remarkable strength and resiliency with everything that they faced, right, Trey? Like everything in that book, Paula and George Mayo. So it'll sound great. It wasn't any harder to do the book than to live the life that they led. This is just a part of their life.
Was it cathartic for her as well?
Well, you know, she didn't read the book till about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that was very scary for me, Trey, because I wondered, is she going to walk upstairs and say, I hated it? Right. And if she says, I hate it, like, there's nothing well, honey, it's print.
It's
like,
print.
It's out there. We're done.
And I'm going to be going
and I was never
going
to force her to read. I can't do that. She was going to read it when she wanted to read it on her time. I can't say, honey, okay, I just finished chapter 8.
Check it out.
She's not like that. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. She was picking the book up to read it when she was ready. And for whatever reason, she was ready a few weeks ago. She started to read it. And when she got done, she came upstairs and she was crying. She was very emotional. And she was crying and went on and on about the fact that she felt so bad for Paula and George and for herself and for Devin. And look, you never want to see your wife cry, but the fact that she was crying told me that the book resonated with her. So the fact that she felt good about it, really loved the book. Honestly, that was all that really mattered to me in the end.
Listen, it's a fascinating read, and again, you can go through it pretty quickly. It's 200 pages.
I just got the text already from my wife saying, bring me the book.
Yeah.
and I promise you, this is the thing. We've given the book to people, and my wife would say, she's a glass half-empty person. Now, I give it to friends, and I said, they loved it. And she said, well, what are you expecting to say? They're your family and friends. I said, okay, but here's the thing. 20 people have now read it, and the one thing, you could say that you loved it, but every single one of them said they read it in one sitting.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you just read it in one sitting, even if you like that person. So,
it's coming with me on the trip.
And again, the book is The Man I Never Met by Adam Schefter, a memoir about Joe Mayo, your wife's first husband who passed away on 9/11. Adam, the book was great. I too read it in one setting. It was great. And you've given people hope with that book, and you've given me hope by taking Le'Veon Bell 12th in the fantasy draft. He was sitting there at 12. I had to. Yeah. I had to.
Boom or bust, Trey.
That's
Boom or
exact.
Bust.
All in.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
Hey, Golic, if I were to throw the lines open right now to discuss who's the GOAT, we'd have no shortage of opinions, correct?
No, we would not.
But if I asked men to talk about their health?
Crickets.
Yeah, a recent Cleveland Clinic survey found 56% of men prefer to keep health concerns to themselves and not share them with anyone, not even their doctor. Cleveland Clinic is ranked #1 in the nation in heart and urology care, and they've heard it all before.
Make sure to visit clevelandclinic.org/mention it for answers to those 10 questions most men are afraid to ask.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. Not only a great song, but the rejoin there was something that Tedy Bruschi put on his Instagram yesterday. It was 10 years ago, essentially today, that he did his first stint with us, and I welcomed in on NFL Live. You put that up on Instagram, Tedy. I could not believe it's been 10 years.
I know.
I could not believe it's been 10 years already.
I remember right before this first show. I mean, it's in my first show. It was the director was in my ear. He said, "Okay, we're live on the Jib in 5." I said, "Yeah, the Jib. What's that?" Yeah. And then Trey says to me just to calm me down. He says, "Hey man, look for the red light and talk football. And I said, oh, you know what? I can do that.
Yeah, because seriously, how about that first time they put that sheet, the rundown thing in front of you, and you see Sot Vozot, you're like,
where are we running?
Wait, what is all this? What is all this stuff?
And what did I say to you? I'm going to ask you a question about football.
Yeah,
and you're going to.
I just highlighted wherever I saw my name and figured, okay, I'm following this or after this, and kind of knew when it was kind of coming my way. It is a bit like that first playbook, that you haven't seen in a while, or with a new team when it's like a different language for you.
And then starting to learn how they try to get you sometimes in the later part of the shows, and then you figure out how to get on the computer and see the
like,
oh yeah, I know how to spell Belichick.
Actually, of all the analysts, Teddy was the only one who ever logged into ENPS to look at stuff. And we try to put things in the rundown on NFL Live to surprise him. And he'd say, hey, what is this spell check? What is this here? So we actually had to start putting in dummy pages in the rundown.
Good job out of you.
Dummy pages in the rundown so we wouldn't know what was talking about it.
I didn't even know how to get to ENPS till 2 years ago.
Listen, as I said, no one walked off the street into the studio better as an analyst than Brew. And by the way, that other picture, you still had your swole on 10 years ago.
I was still doing
yoked, dude.
I was still working on the neck machine about 4 days prior to that show. I mean, because it was, I retired and boom, right?
I think one of the ones that was the most full still body-wise was our buddy Stink.
Oh, yeah.
That picture.
Yeah.
He was about to blow up.
Yeah,
it looked like.
he was.
He looked like he was Mark Schlereth in a Mark Schlereth fat suit.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tedy Bruschi, our ESPN NFL analyst for 10 years now, joins us in studio giving us the Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. There's been a lot of straight talk about what's going on with Le'Veon Bell, and I want to get your take on it. But this may be the straightest talk of all time. This is from Debbie, a Steelers fan, on the ABC affiliate WTAE in Pittsburgh about what's going on with Le'Veon Bell.
Very angry at him. I mean, I understand, okay? He got to eat too. He got a family. I get it. But at the end of the day, really, you can't take it with you, Le'Veon. If you don't show up, who cares? We'll do it without. It's the Steelers. Like, we create the talent. We made you who you are. We made you what you're worth. End the story.
Debbie walking off.
Man.
Teddy, what do you think?
We made you?
People get emotional.
Yep, they do.
Offensive linemen get emotional. When you think something's going to happen and another thing does. I mean, I played for the same team my entire career. I did what I could to stay with the New England Patriots, but still I understand what Le'Veon's going through and what he's doing because, he's 26 years old. His leverage is running out.
Right.
He's going to be 27 in February. That's when hopefully he's a free agent, and he doesn't see a future right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They couldn't work things out. So you understand in the locker room that he's got to do what's best, how he feels. And you got to respect that. So for Foster and DeCastro and some of those guys, Pouncey to come out like that, this is, Golic, we all know as former players, this is where you don't go in terms of getting into somebody's business, into somebody's contract, and this drama / distraction for the fans and the locker room. The Steelers have to find some way to just get by it and move on.
I could tell you were surprised at it. I was surprised at it. A lot of former players on social media surprised that they commented on it, that they were comparing contracts. I make 1/7. This guy makes a half. That was so.
It was a next level.
It was so stunning to me. And now it will just create questions again by the media today. As I said, you're going to hear today, we're not talking about Le'Veon. We got a game on Sunday. We're going to move on. That's what you're going to hear today. But it made me start to wonder, because people said, wouldn't you be mad? I said, oh yeah, I may be mad. But that doesn't say, man, I'm going to say anything publicly about it. You keep it in-house. But because they came out so publicly, do you think there's more behind the scenes with the relationship with these teammates and Le'Veon?
I think it may be. I think did Le'Veon have personal conversations with them and give them assurances that he was going to be there? I'm just speculating, of course, but if I was told by a teammate that I'm going to be there and then he doesn't show up, it upset me a little bit more. But still, to me, I've always said the NFL truth. What do? They'll tell you something one week and then the next week something's totally different. You get used to that type of thing. Things change. Maybe Le'Veon felt good about where he was going to be in terms of, how the contract, how the talks were going, what the future was, and then he feels good about it and talks to them. So you don't know. Things change within contract negotiations, within situations, how players feel personally about their situation. So you got to understand that type of thing. For me, going forward, I mean, this game versus Cleveland's big.
Yeah.
It's big for me because Cleveland, defensively especially, is no joke. And
they look great in the
it's not going to be a pushover, guys, for this. And winning this game, I think, is very important for Pittsburgh because it starts the move-on process. Because as the Steelers start to figure out how big of a distraction this can be for them in the locker room, because that first game that they struggle offensively, they'll be thinking about Le'Veon. I think so. And then so that type of distraction, knowing that he's out there and he can still come back. It's just like this little toy you have. Why aren't we using it? Maybe I should call him. Maybe I can talk him into coming. Or is he just coming for those 6 games and trying to get that accrued season?
Yep.
And when he does, and whatever our record is, and say Connor's doing good and we're playing good, do I even want him? Do I want him there to come in and help us for 6 games? Because I'm so emotional about how it went in the beginning of the year. So there's a lot of mental gymnastics, emotional gymnastics that some of these players can go through.
A couple things on that trade to go off of what Tedy said is as far as if he told them something, the reason, and again, I don't know the absolute answer why I don't think he said he was coming in this week, because they put him on blast pretty well yesterday. And if he had told them he was coming in this week, I think that would have come out while they were blasting him, and I think they would have said he told us he was coming in and he didn't, but they didn't say that. So
no,
so personally, I don't think that happened. And as far as when he comes in, the one thing I would say, because everybody says, well, when he comes back in, how is it going to be? Players have a way of smoothing things over to get a talented guy on the field. And anyway, everybody doesn't always get along on a team. So you just, you compete together. Yeah. But the one thing I would say to him, if you're going to be here, be here.
Right.
Be here and be willing to put yourself out there and play. Don't just be here and try and nurse something so you get through the season. If you're going to step in this locker room and on that field, step on it 100%.
Can Le'Veon squash it with them?
Yeah.
Well, how about him? Yeah. How about him thinking about, well, wait a second. Now you're talking about my contract?
Right. Yeah.
You're talking about how much I make. You're talking about my long-term career and making comments on it publicly. Can he forgive them to come back?
Well, that's that. You and I passed each other in the hallway, and we had the same sort of thought. This sounds like it might be something where they're thinking about, is it possible to extricate themselves from this? Is there a way, and we know it's difficult, but there is a way around this. A trade does it. Now, I understand it's difficult, but it might be the best solution all the way around at this point.
How do you move on?
Yeah.
How do you move on from this? Because it's as you can tell the reaction yesterday, it's an emotional distraction to your team. And like I said, if they struggle offensively, they're going to continue to think about Le'Veon and the decision he's made not to be there. If Le'Veon was not there and the Steelers just, I don't know, all of the recourse in terms of not having the signed contract, him coming in, having a sign and getting the 6 games, what they can do or anything like that. But him being there, him not being there, either way could be a distraction. Either way, so cutting the cord and moving on and try to better your organization, is that possible for them to do?
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be complicated. Tedy Bruschi is with us, and we're running out of time here, but I do want to get to the Khalil Mack situation because this first 4 weeks of the season is going to be very important for the Raiders. You lived through this in 2003, I believe, or 2004. I can't remember when they
cut Lawyer Malloy.
Right before the season opener,
right.
You guys went into Buffalo and lost 31-0. Now the beauty of that is Week 17, you beat Buffalo 31-0, which I can't think is an accident or coincidence. The exact same score, but you guys were angry after that, and you vented, and they needed the organization needed to prove, hey, we can still win without this guy. That's critical for the Raiders in this first month, isn't it?
Right. I'll just give you my example. When we went into Buffalo and Lawyer's out there making plays, making sacks on Brady, and then they crush us 31-0. That week was one of the toughest weeks for me mentally to get back to saying, he's gone. He's gone, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's week 2. We got to go into Philadelphia and get a win somehow. That type of mental shift rather than feeling sorry for yourself, which I think we did going into that week. Our captain was gone. One of our best defensive players was gone, similar to what they're going through in Oakland. If they have lay that type of egg, that type of mental shift has got to be taken on by a lot of veterans that possibly have to look at it, to look at the head coach. And while you're looking at him and are upset about what you just did, what you just did to us, getting rid of Khalil Mack, all right, forget it, because I'm here to play football and let's still go win. We're with you. That's tough to do.
And they're playing the Rams. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
on Monday night, by the way, who just paid Aaron Donald.
Yeah, they got a heck of an offense without Khalil Rams do without Khalil.
So what if I'm a Raider
defense.
on the sideline and Donald makes a play?
Yeah.
Right.
There's a player that got paid that's making plays.
That's
How
exactly
come we
right.
couldn't do that?
Exactly. I'm telling you, the first 4 weeks are critical for John Gruden's credibility with going forward. And by the way, let's not forget they're the oldest roster in football.
Right.
Raiders are the oldest roster in football. In fact, the oldest roster we found since we started keeping track of them in 2012. We'll see what happens these first few weeks.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's.